All right, what's going on, guys? I appreciate you guys tuning into another one of my videos, and long podcast is this one. Basically, I brought on one of my good friends, Donzaile, and halfway through the podcast, the OBS crashed, and I was able to record the footage, but it cut off right around 34 to 36 minutes. So I just want to say I apologize, and I owe you guys a laugh in the future because it was actually a good joke where it crashed at. But beyond that, I hope you guys enjoy this podcast and just episode in general. Hopefully more will be coming soon. And if you guys want a chance to come onto the podcast, shoot me a DM on Instagram at AndrewBHTX, or even leave a comment and we'll get in touch that way. Hopefully you guys are having a great and wonderful day, and this video brings either a laugh, a smile, or even challenges the way that you guys think. But I've taken up almost a minute of your life that you probably won't ever get back. So without further ado, let's get right into the podcast. All right, what is going on, guys? It has been a long-awaited 2 months since I've even uploaded on the channel, so I know it's been a minute, but I appreciate you guys hanging in, and I have got a few questions asking where I've been, what I've been up to. It's mainly just been friends. It hasn't really been people from the channel, but we'll still get one out. But also a long-awaited podcast with my boy Donzaile. So leave a like, comment, and definitely subscribe on that. We've been waiting for this one for a minute. But first off, I appreciate you coming on. And I met you through Verizon, but beyond that, what have you been up to? And just that. We'll start right there.
Yeah, man, since we met at Verizon, after that, bro, it's just been more so like me getting adjusted to working in tech, me getting adjusted to working from home. It's been just about a full year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Around this time was when I actually like started to apply out to like other companies, and then I think I got officially accepted on at Dell in like February or March. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been just about a year, bro, and like literally just adjusting. It's taking longer than normal because I've never worked from home before, and it's just like a super lifestyle change, man.
Mm-hmm.
It'll eat you alive if you don't have people and just activity to get you out the house. It's so super easy to get kind of like stuck in a little bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, man, dude, same car, still live in the same place. My
Mm-hmm.
lease is up this year, so I'm planning on moving. Um, haven't really gone out to any car meets. I know we used to talk about cars and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I haven't really ventured out to any car meets lately, man. The scene's been crazy in Houston.
Yeah.
So, um, just trying to engulf myself in tech, man, and stuff that's been going on in the world, to try and stay ahead of the curve. And
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, man, it's pretty much it, dude. I haven't,
Pretty busy.
yeah,
Yeah.
no major lifestyle change. I mean, aside from work, bro, there's no major lifestyle change. It's not like I bought a Lamborghini or a yacht
Not
or
yet.
like,
Not yet.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
or married a supermodel or anything like that.
In due
Nah, it's
time. Well,
yeah.
speaking about the car, because I know we used to talk about that a lot. You got the SS. It was a 2018, right?
2017 Camaro.
2017. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
still
man.
got it. I thought about trading it a couple times. I like the new Mustang that's coming out, so
Yeah.
part of me wants to go for that one, and part of me is like, fix up the Camaro, make it to like a track car or something like that. I started
Hmm.
watching race videos, like heavy,
Yeah.
like street racing videos and things like
Hmm.
that. And man, I've been following these guys out in Cali, and they just make it look so fun, and it's like so drama filled. So
Yeah.
um, I don't know. Part of me wants to get into that. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to see.
And well, I mean, we might have to line them up one of these days. I think. Well, my goal, like I told you from even a year ago, was to get a Mustang, and
Hmm.
I haven't made it happen yet. Now that I'm finally able to maybe explore that route, I think I'm probably in March or maybe early April. I'm planning
Oh
to
yeah,
make that purchase, and we'll have to line them up. I hear those 1080s are crazy, and the Camaro obviously. Last time I heard it sounded pretty good. To be honest, you had that course on it.
yeah. I have the Corsa exhaust. Damn, bro. If you're gonna get the 10 speed, yeah, I'm gonna for sure have to come with some mods. Those 10
Yeah,
R80s are crazy.
nah,
Yeah,
for
they're
sure.
super crazy.
Now, but I mean, beyond that, I know. I think we had talked a few times. You had said that you were into like Star Wars and a few of the, MCU and as well as DC characters and stuff like that. I know it's completely off
Hmm.
topic. It just kind of crossed my head a little bit. Have you kept up with like some of the latest movies or like the latest ones that came out, like Black Adam and
Um,
all of those?
yeah, I've seen Black Adam a couple times, bro. I think I've watched that one a total of like 5 times already.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've also Watched the Robert Pattinson's Batman probably a
Ooh,
total of like 6 or 7 times.
yeah.
Um, I did see Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. I don't know, man. I'm kind of like migrating from Marvel over to DC.
Hmm.
I've always liked DC and always admired DC because I've always been a Batman fan.
Yeah.
Um, I just liked Marvel because they had more characters that I liked versus DC.
Hmm.
But I could say like now I'm not really. I mean, Marvel to. All right, so to be honest, I think Marvel is really good. I mean, they have a lot of great characters. They have a lot of great stories. They tell a lot of great stories.
Hmm.
Phase 1 through 3 to me were like was like the best era of movies in general.
Hmm.
Um, I think now, it kind of to me it seemed like they kind of cooled down. Like they focus more on a lot of their streaming, like
Yeah.
the She-Hulk, Moonlight, WandaVision, the Loki show and stuff like that. But it looks like with this new Ant-Man movie, they're kind of like gearing back up to go into like the next Avengers and start, pulling out those big cinematic hits,
Hmm.
and introducing a plethora of new characters. I wasn't fond of Eternals at all. I thought that movie, like, I'm pretty sure the Eternals is setting up something in the background, but I was like, that's something they could have deal without.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
It's funny that you say that though, because I know my brother, like, he's a movie goer. He watches most of the movies that come out. He's an AMC. What is it called? He has an AMC pass, so he pays like the monthly subscription, and he can go
oh
check it
yeah,
out. But so whenever he
yeah.
says like a movie's good, I'm like, all right, I'll go check it out. And usually, yeah, I know when you mentioned Eternals, I know even on TV or movies wherever, he probably will watch everything, especially like
Mhm.
superhero related.
Yeah.
So, well, first off, shout out to him. But yeah, I mean, whenever he tells me a movie's good or not. So I remember going back. I mean, you had mentioned it with Robert Pattinson's Batman, and I mean, even when it came out on HBO, I've seen the movie, no joke, probably 16 times. And like maybe I haven't been zoned into it when I've watched all 16. Maybe it's been in the background or whatever. But that
Yeah.
movie to me, probably the best movie of last year for sure.
Oh,
Um,
hands down,
that
hands down.
one, and I can't even think because even when you mentioned Doctor Strange, like multiverse, that to me seemed like it was Wanda's movie. It didn't even seem like it was.
Doctor Strange movie. Yeah,
Yeah, it seemed like it was more of her film, but it was all right. It
agreed.
was cool. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think I'm definitely leaning more towards DC as of lately, and we'll see what the new Avengers has to do. But I know they
Mhm.
just started production on the second Batman. I don't know who's going to be the villain in this one, but I'm definitely excited to see what Robert Pattinson's going to do in this one.
Yeah, and how they changed the story too, because like they're leaving off with Gotham being flooded. There's a new
Hmm.
mayor. The first movie was Batman's second year as a Cape Crusader.
Yeah.
Um, you have the dynamic of like Catwoman leaving, Penguin probably trying to grab for power. Um, just different stuff like that. So, I mean, we don't know. And then with James Gunn becoming the Kevin Feige of DC,
Hmm.
and then Peter Safran, like being co-CEO. I think we're going to see some big changes. So to me, what it looks like is DC is finishing off their their Snyderverse,
Hmm.
with Aquaman 2 and the Flash movie. And then from there, we might start to see like the rollout of like the new Superman.
Hmm.
What's next for DC as far as like Blue Beetle and maybe another Suicide Squad and just stuff like that. James Gunn is actually supposed to reveal the 10-year plan. I think probably soon. I would imagine that they would hold off until DC Fandom,
Hmm.
which is a whole new year. So they're supposed to be doing a DC Fandom this year. So I'd imagine that they would hold off until then, so they can kind of like go over that at that point. But we just never
Yeah.
know. I keep checking IGN daily,
Yeah.
every hourly to see, being on YouTube and seeing what like spectators and speculators are saying. But
Hmm.
a lot of people are upset that Henry Cavill is out as Superman.
I was a
There's
little
all the
upset about that.
yeah, I mean, I am kind of too because I felt like like Henry Cavill was like the best and perfect Superman. I just feel
Hmm.
like he didn't get the opportunity to really be Superman. They had the Man of Steel movie, which I thought was great, Batman versus Superman, and then they rolled them into the Justice League.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that Superman probably should have got like maybe another like Man of Steel 2. They definitely should have did like individual Batman movies as well. Since Aquaman, it was I don't know because Aquaman and Wonder Woman got and even Shazam got their own standalone films.
Mm-hmm.
Batman was the only one that didn't get a standalone film.
Yeah, well, the Flash as well, right? I mean, he had it was a TV series, or did he get his own film? I don't remember any of
So
that.
the Flash movie that's coming out this year is Flash his first standalone movie.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta think. I think Man of Steel came out in what like 20 is it 2014, 2016 maybe?
I
Or
know it
I
was an
couldn't
older film. I know that for sure.
yeah, like super old. So I think yeah, 2013. So Man of
Mm-hmm.
Steel came out in 2013. So yeah, I think from 2013, like Henry Cavill didn't get a sequel to Man of Steel.
Mm-hmm.
So Aquaman 2 is barely coming out. Wonder Woman had two movies. Um, I don't know. DC was just all over the place, and I think that's what turned a lot of people off because it seems like today, everyone is expecting hero movies to be like Marvel movies. Like
Mm-hmm.
Marvel is the gold standard of what a hero-centric universe should be.
Yeah.
I think that when people saw DC's movies and they kept comparing and contrasting them to Marvel's movies, they were dissatisfied because there wasn't the character development there, the story wasn't as immersive,
Mm-hmm.
maybe the animation wasn't there, the comedy and humor probably wasn't there. So I think a lot of people were upset. The continuity didn't fit together. There was a lot of plot holes and stuff that was unexplained and things like that. So I think that a lot of people were super upset.
Mm-hmm.
Critiquing DC films compared to Marvel, and I think that in turn hurt the DC universe. Um, they wanted to rush out, man. You got Marvel like literally setting the gold standard, and DC has just as good of characters. They have a great amount of characters and a great amount of stories to be told, but they were kind of late to the party. So
Mm-hmm.
I think from there they tried to kind of like, okay, let's do Man of Steel. Let's come out with the Wonder Woman movie. All right, cool. Let's drop Batman versus Superman, and then we'll do Aquaman, and then Justice League right behind it, and then Wonder Woman 2, and it was just kind of jumbled all together, and it was I think unorganization, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think even now, dude, you got DC wanted to have it to where individual films were being made on the side along with the main continuity. So you could have like Robert Pattinson's Batman, and then maybe somebody else would create another version of Batman, and then you'd have the main Batman from the DCEU, and the same thing with Superman and Lois and XYZ. So that kind of created a lot of confusion with
Mm-hmm.
just fans in general because you look at Marvel has one Iron Man,
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Yeah.
yeah, one Captain America,
Mm-hmm.
one Hulk. Like, there's not like, oh, the MCU Hulk, and then on Disney Plus you can go and see two other live action Hulks. Nah,
Mm-hmm.
it's just like one character. So,
Yeah.
um, supposedly James Gunn, and for those who don't know who James Gunn is, he is the mastermind behind the Guardians of the Galaxy. Also the mastermind behind the new Suicide Squad movie. So I think that DC saw, Warner Brothers saw how because you look at the original Suicide Squad with Jared Leto,
Mm-hmm.
Will
Will
Smith,
Smith, all them Pete Davidson, even in the second one.
Pete Davidson's in the newer one, right?
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
if you watch both of those movies, you watch the original Suicide Squad movie, then you watch the new one that James Gunn did. That's essentially what we are going to see with the DCEU is you have that original tone, and then you have the new tone of the new Suicide Squad movie. Hopefully that carries over into the entire DCEU because that second Suicide Squad movie was funny,
Mm-hmm.
had a great story, the cast was great, the animations, the suits, everything was on point about that movie in comparison to the original Suicide Squad. It had a lot more depth to it than the original Suicide Squad movie.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't need to include the Joker in it. So I think that I'm hoping that James Gunn can come in and turn the DCEU around and really show fans and show the mainstream how great DC is. Because in comparison to Marvel, it does seem like Marvel is kind of slipping with the CGI. They're slipping with the story. They're slipping with the overall just message. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Marvel, the movies are supposed to be fun. People want to be entertained and they want to be immersed in this imaginary world,
Mm-hmm.
where they can escape from reality. And I think that people who watch, like diehard comic book fans, don't read comics for the wittiness. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's more so because they want to hear great heroic stories. And I think that getting back to that root, because that's what made Phase One so great, is that nobody cared about Iron Man before Robert Downey Jr. stepped into the role. There
Yeah.
wasn't a big push for Iron Man movies and Iron Man, animated series. Nobody cared about Captain America, Thor. Most people who are Marvel fans now didn't even know who those characters were before 2007 or whenever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, um I think that Marvel got off to a great start because they told great heroic stories. There was no underlining agenda. There was no like, political correctness or anything, just all the speculation that people make about Marvel movies now. None of that was present really in Phase One.
Mm-hmm.
I think that getting back to that core of just making great heroic movies is really what fans really want. Like, I mean, we're gonna take what you give us. Of course, we have no
Yeah.
choice because it's not like me or you can go and say move over. We're gonna make
Mm-hmm.
our own Marvel movies. We have to take what they give us, but also at the same time, you look at reviews and you look at critic reviews and you look at what people are saying online on both sides. People do like the stories that are being told. They like the
Mm-hmm.
characters that are being brought to light, but there's still that notion of like, damn, it's just not the same. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'm
no, for
hoping.
sure. I definitely get what you mean by that, and even going back to like thinking about Black Adam a little bit, like you want
Mhm.
to feel like you're in the movie and like that you're just like you're like watching it, but you're not at a movie theater, and you want to have that feeling that it's not reality. Kind of like you said, that you
Yeah.
escape it, and I felt that with Batman being a 3 hour and 14 minute movie. I was in the
Mhm.
movie until the very, very end, like the last 12 minutes. Whenever it's that long outro of them riding the bike, and I was like, "All right, man, like let's go ahead and wrap this one up." But during the movie, like I was in, and
Oh yeah.
like with Black Adam, I remember watching it and it had bad CGI on multiple parts of the movies, and one that sticks out to me that I will not forget was when
Mhm.
they're leaving the house and everything starts transforming and it folds out and then they fly up and they go away. And I remember
Oh
watching
yeah.
that and I was like, it snapped me out of the movie. I was like, wait a second, like, what am I looking at? Like, this is a billion-dollar corporation that is making this movie. I don't know how much they put into it. It was like 400 million or some crazy amount. I forget how much
Two
they
ninety
poured in.
five or
Is it
something.
295? Still a
Yeah.
lot of money, and they can't get some good CGI out there, and
Yeah.
or just effects in general. So I remember seeing that, and I know Marvel. It doesn't have the greatest either. It does have some spots, pick and choose, but they're more fluid. They're more easy to watch, and like you said with the characters, it's simplicity that rules the fans over by not
Mhm.
having 9 Iron Mans, 7 Hulks, and like the rest of the gang. So
Yeah.
it's simplistic in that way, but also like I like the way that they carry the story from the beginning at Iron Man all the way to where we are now. And yeah, like you said, it was so jumbled up. It was so with DC, it was so jumbled up and very
Yeah.
confusing. And I didn't know when I was watching Batman vs Superman, and then I don't. It's just like their order is very like almost that they didn't have one in general. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's where it's kind of confusing to me, and I'm excited to see what the future holds, and I hope whatever route they choose. Overall, if they give me some good movies, I'll be happy. It don't even have to be in chronological order. Just give me something good to watch, and I'm tuned in.
Oh yeah, heck yeah.
Yeah.
And I watched Black Adam too, and I like that movie because I'm a Dwayne the Rock Johnson fan. I have been because
Yep.
I used to watch wrestling when I was a kid,
Of course.
and back when The Rock was doing the eyebrow and
Yeah.
Austin and
We
all of
all did
them.
that
So
in the mirror, man. We all looked in the
yeah,
mirror and tried to
heck
do
yeah.
it. Never worked for me, but hey.
Man, you gotta like
Yeah, I can't,
uh
still can't do it. Yeah, I still can't hit that shit.
I would say my most I was I've been reading about the Black Adam movie for a couple years,
Hmm.
right? And I was just thinking like, okay, maybe The Rock has so many different projects, he'll get to it when he can.
Hmm.
And then when the movie finally came out, I felt like The Rock had kind of grown out of the Black Adam character. Like, if
Hmm.
you would have caught him like maybe 10 years ago or even, 8 years ago,
Hmm.
probably. But I think now I just felt like, I don't know, it's to the point now where The Rock himself, he's himself in every movie, it seems. Now,
Yeah. No, yeah, for
you
sure.
watch some of his earlier movies, he had more personality to where he can leave being The Rock and he can get into character. We all knew him as The Rock
Hmm.
because we were familiar with him before he even popped in the
Yeah.
movie. It's kind of like Jared Leto. You look at Jared Leto and you know him from his music, but then you see him in Suicide Squad or you see him in Morbius and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, he's kind of like not rock
Yeah.
starish,
I try to
you know?
forget Morbius. I'm gonna be honest with you. I do try to forget that one. It's
Yeah,
stuck in
Morbius.
there, but I'll
Yeah,
forgive him for that.
Morbius was like
Yeah.
but I feel like where Black Adam fell short was one, The Rock really should have exhibited more personality. He should have been more
Hmm.
vigilant. He should have been more violent. He should have had a darker tone to him if that's what they were going for, the anti-hero type of theme.
Hmm.
Um, Two, I felt like the movie moved entirely too fast. I think that a large part of the movie should have went in depth as to who the wizards were. Like it should have focused more in on Black Adam at the time, like back in earlier Conduct before modern day Conduct.
Hmm.
Um, I think that given you have Dr. Fate, and some of the other characters of the Justice Society, I think there should have been a little more development
Hmm.
and involvement on their part. That movie could have been longer. It could have been more simple too. Um, but I just think that one, it moved a little too fast. The Rock didn't have enough of Black Adam's personality, and he didn't really look like Black Adam. I think earlier Rock, when he still had hair,
Yeah.
he could have pulled it off. But now with the
They should have
bald
put
head,
a yeah. They should have put a toupee on him or something. Give him
at
something to
least a
work with.
2K or
Give him a
something.
good
Yeah,
lineup a little bit. That'd have been something right there. But no,
would
I
have
get
been.
what you're saying. That would have
His
been that would have been good to be honest. But also just to I don't mean to interrupt, but like the the story behind most enemies in DC or just the villains, I don't feel like they have a gigantic backstory to where you kind of feel like in Marvel Thanos. I'm like, all right, I can get on board with that. Like he wants for his for the people and everything for his world
balance.
titan. Yeah, it made sense, and you're like, okay, I get where he's coming from. But in Black Adam, the villain, I'm like, okay, for once, because I didn't really get to read the comics, I didn't do my research. I went in with a blank mind and just watched the movie. And the villain
Yeah.
itself, like, I didn't understand it. I was like, okay, he wants all the power. It's kind of basic, I guess. And the
Hmm.
other thing was, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. Like, The Rock now, the movies that stand out to me, like, one of my favorites was the one my brother put me on was Walking Tall. Love that
Oh
movie.
yeah.
It was good. And it made sense. With most of the Rock movies now, it's just him lounging around in the camera being the Rock, and people love it because what's the Rock? Who doesn't love it? So, I mean, him and Kevin Hart, I feel like both of them, they're in that same kind of thing. Even though Kevin's
Mhm.
like, the old acting, that one sticks out. What was it called? I forget. It's the one with Steve Carell, Seth Rogen, and all them. He walked in that in the store. I forgot what it's.
Was that
Oh,
when he was like trying to get him ready to go to jail and stuff like
was
that?
it? Oh no, that one's Get Hard. The other one was a
All right.
40-year-old virgin. That's what it was. And he had walked in there,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
40
yeah,
year old virgin. Oh my
that was a
gosh,
classic.
that is a classic. Yeah.
But yeah, no, just
Uh,
those two. So that's what kind of sticks out to me with Black Adam and stuff like that.
yeah. I mean, they
You
could
know.
have made some changes, but I don't think Black Adam is going to be a part of the new DCEU going forward. I
Hmm.
think The Rock is kind of either on the back burner or he's out. So I think if they do another Black Adam, then it'd probably be, a different actor.
Yeah.
Um, and just The Rock wanted to pull Black Adam off into his own little thing and make him the main villain of the DCEU. I don't think that would have worked. I think he should have played ball and been more endowed to be a part of the Shazam versus Black Adam
Mm-hmm.
um, mythology, because that's what went on with the actual comics. That Black Adam was one of Shazam's arch nemesis.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can't think of his name now; it just slipped my head. But the main villain, like the demon guy at the end of
Yeah.
Black Adam, there should have been more development about him in the movie because he just
Yeah.
randomly came out of nowhere, you know.
Yeah.
And the structure of that was lame too because they still got, regardless of Black Adam helping, the Justice Society out, they got him to sacrifice his powers, and it just didn't make sense towards
Mm-hmm.
the end. So, Sabak, that was his name,
Mm.
Sabak. That's the villain. Um, and Black Adam. So, and that's a problem that people have with a lot of DC movies is the story is cool. Like Black
Mm-hmm.
Adam is a cool character.
Yeah.
Doctor Fate was a cool character. Hawkman, a cool character. Hurricane, Atom Smasher, they're all cool characters. The story just sucked though. You
Well, the
know?
writing as well, man. Like I remember, what is his name? You had just said it's something Adam. Was it Adam, man? Adam.
Atom Smasher, the guy who
Adam was
can
that
like
dude. Yes, like cool character concept. Just the writing in the movie for him, like specifically, and a lot of otherness was just pure cheesiness. Just not,
super
it
cheesy.
was super cheesy. Wasn't very funny, and I think
Yeah,
when I went to watch it in the movies, there was a couple people laughing. I peeped over. I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I ain't gonna judge, but it was just
yeah,
like this is more for I guess that style, and maybe it's the way I look at comedy. I don't know, but it was
yeah.
definitely it had some cheesiness, and I think the writing itself could have been better. And that's where honestly, if y'all are hiring over there, man, I'll fill out an application real quick and
I'll
I'll
let your
pull up.
boy.
But
Yeah.
no, I mean, but everything beyond that, um, I guess my last question to wrap up this segment would be if you could be any superhero, whether it's Marvel or DC, and I'll give you a second to think about it, which one would you be? But
Damn.
but you got to live their whole life too, not just their powers itself. So I know with Batman, because I had a coworker asked him this, and he's like, "Oh, Batman." I was like, "Damn, so you want to watch your parents get, you know what I'm saying? You want to watch them get smoked,
Damn.
you
See,
know?"
because I would say Batman too, because I think like the powers are cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would think like, man, I'm torn between Iron Man and Silver Surfer. The problem is that like I feel like Iron Man has an even more cool story I could relate to.
Mm-hmm.
Even from the relationship with his parents to being into technology to feeling a bit of isolation when it comes to your intelligence, because you could tell that Iron Man is his intelligence is so vast that he kind of like seems a little like off, like people
Mm-hmm.
have to remind him like, Tony, you're human. Tony, you're gonna kill yourself. Tony,
Yeah.
but he doesn't see. So I think I would be Iron Man if I could be anybody,
Mm-hmm.
because out of all the superhero movies aside from Batman, I think I related to Tony Stark more. Um, I just wouldn't want to go through that whole watching my parents get shot,
Yeah. No, for sure.
watching my
I
parents
mean,
get shot, and like stuff like that. And I don't know. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
No,
you
yeah.
know what? I would be Batman. I would be Batman.
You gotta live with that scar on your heart, man. That one right there is gonna hurt. But you do,
Yeah.
you become a billionaire. You got cool powers, and you got a kick-ass butler. I mean, can't ask
Yeah.
for much more. Well,
Yeah.
besides
For
your
much
parents, I don't know. I guess that'd be it. But I don't know.
man. I think every great superhero, just like what's crazy, you look at superhero origins and the superhero stories, and then you look at the villain origins and the villain stories.
Hmm.
They're honestly not too different from each other.
Yeah, one just maybe took a
So,
left turn.
yeah, it's just
Yeah.
somewhere in life you took a right turn or a left turn, and then the hero has a lot to lose, the villains have a lot to lose, but the villain just typically is always that person who's willing to do what they need to do to get where they're trying to go.
Hmm.
And then superheroes are like kind of like balancing that fine line, which I think is why Batman, he doesn't kill people at first because he's trying to be different.
Hmm.
Like he may feel like crime, that crossing that line is what separates heroes from criminals.
Hmm.
And yeah, man. So I think it would be between Superman. I mean, it would be between Iron Man and Batman, bro. But I think I would actually go for Batman has a badass car too, bro. The
It
Batmobile is
does.
tight.
And the new one, I love it, man. I think that's the best Batmobile there is.
That muscle
Yeah,
car look, yeah,
it's
hell yeah, with
good,
the
man. I
engine
love
liner in the
that.
back,
That
yeah.
was a that
The
was a
way they
nice car.
introduced it was super dope
Oh
too.
yeah. remember my
I
first time
seen.
watching it, and I was like I got, I would say goosebumps, but it was like my first time seeing it. I just remember like, damn, it just felt like, yeah, like I was in the movie, and I was just like, what is that? And then motor started up, cold start. I was like, oh yeah, this is the one. This is
Yeah.
the one right here.
Flames started popping out the side,
Yeah,
and I'm good. And then, like, yeah, he was revving the engine. Then,
yeah.
yeah, that was honestly the best scene of that movie,
Hmm.
in my opinion. The whole chasing Penguin down and everything. But that was like, damn, because people were wondering, like, what is the Batmobile is like one of the biggest aspects of Batman's persona.
Hmm.
And I think that once that reveal was like the best, that was so epic. Like, kudos to Matt Reeves, the whole team that put that together. I'm gonna watch that later tonight just so I can see relive.
Yeah, I
That
might have
was that
to,
was.
man. Is it still on? It's still on HBO or no?
Oh yeah, it's still on
It is.
HBO
I'm
Max.
about to
Yeah.
tune into that, but I mean, segueing and everything like that. I see that you got. It looked to me. I didn't get a close look. Is that a NASA shirt you got on?
Oh yeah, for sure.
It is.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
I
it.
got a question. So, I don't know if you've seen it, and because you did say that you're searching on a lot of different things, and have you seen the update on Kepler, like the new planet like Earth that they were talking about?
Yeah, I saw that this past week that NASA came across a planet in the Goldilocks region of a
Hmm.
star that's like, I want to say it's like what, 100 light years away.
Yeah, 100 light years.
Yeah, 100 light years away. So
Yeah.
I haven't looked too much into the details, but I mean it's only a matter of time. There are other Earth-like planets, or just planets like Goldilocks planets. I don't say Earth-like, but Goldilocks planets out there. It's just using the utensils that we've been using, the instruments that we've been using for the past decade, 2 decades. It's just kind of hard to get a lot of data
Hmm.
on those. But as we improve our telescopes, that's why I think the James Webb telescope is super amazing because
Mm.
you can not only see further, but you can see just different aspects of our universe, and we're unraveling a lot of new discoveries.
Mm. Hmm.
You know, and I mean, I don't know, bro. I'm fascinated. I hope they really find out more information about these planets and, and give us something good that we can. This is stuff that we've all been waiting on. It's like, man, is there
Yeah.
another planet like Earth out
Yeah.
there? Is
No, yeah,
it
I
one
see.
reachable?
I hope like how you said, like the James Webb Telescope, we were able to see a lot of new things, but also just in vivid detail, and it looks
Yeah.
just fascinating. It looks amazing, and I guess my first thing was whenever I seen it said 100 light years away, I was like, okay, that's not far. I looked it up. So 1 light year to travel is 19,157 years per,
Hmm.
obviously in speed terms. So I don't know what that would truly be. But multiply that, you get 100 light years. So that, by the way it's looking, it might not be in our lifetime. Unless Elon's got something up his sleeve, who knows? With that guy, I mean, I don't know. That's the modern day Iron Man right there. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes. But the other thing would be, even if it was Kepler or another Earth-like planet that was habitable and we were able to like get there, my thing would be, what would be on there? Like, you get off the ship, what's the first thing that you think you would see beyond it looking like damn near gorgeous and all that?
I mean, if it was, see, there's a lot of things that we have to consider when looking for an Earth-like planet because we got to look at everything that happened in our solar system
Hmm.
that made Earth the way it is. So we would have to hope that there was, a seismic event that, would herald the creation of water, oxygen, that it had adequate sunlight. Maybe it's if its star is close to end of life or is a new star.
Hmm.
How many days does it take to, travel around its sun? Does it have a moon?
Mm.
So, because our tides are, partly controlled, partly due to the gravitational buoyancy and pull of our moon around
Hmm.
our Earth. So if it doesn't have a moon and it has oceans, do those oceans have tide? Does water travel? Does it have fresh water? What type of life, if there may be? Are there just microbes there? Are there actual living intelligent organisms? There's so many different factors that you have to look into when thinking about, okay, is there another planet? Because like you look at Mars, for example, I think it takes around like 6 months to get to Mars,
Hmm.
and Mars is has a very thin atmosphere. Any water that's on Mars is like frozen, mostly found like underneath the surface. Mars takes longer to revolve around the sun, so the years are longer. And those bring about questions like, okay, if it takes longer to revolve around the sun, then is that slow aging? Just simple
Mm-hmm.
like stuff like that. I mean, it's a lot of different things that we have to take into consideration. Like I think right now people are just excited that we found another planet, but use a lot of things to take into consideration when you're talking about space travel and interstellar travel and colonizing new worlds and new planets because we've been on Earth for thousands of years. So you got to think our
Mm-hmm.
entire existence revolves around what we experience here on Earth, our sleep pattern,
Mm-hmm.
being able to at least, it's for us, it's like 23.9, almost 24 hours in a day, right? So you got to think on a planet where the day is longer, having to adjust to having sunlight for an extended period of time. How
Mm-hmm.
does that affect our sleep pattern? The gravity on Earth, how does the gravity on this new planet affect us as people? How does it affect our bone density and our muscle development? Um, the type of chemicals and elements that are in the air, in the atmosphere. How would that affect our breathing and our lungs and our skin and stuff like that? Is this a planet that we can reproduce on? Does
Mm-hmm.
it have any type of um, ozone layer? A
Mm-hmm.
magnetic field that protects it from, like our magnetic field protects us from violent sun rays and radiation and things
Right.
like that. So does this planet have anything like that?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things to consider. Is it in a is it even habitable? Like,
Yeah,
can you even
that's the main
like,
question. Because I mean,
yeah,
is it even habitable? But also, and to go back and to touch on that, to see if it is even possible to reproduce. If I am going to Mars, I'm gonna tell Elon straight up, I need someone with me, and we're gonna have to find out. We're gonna have to go toe to toe. We're gonna see how this thing plays out, and I'll leave that in the air. I will say that. So Elon, if somehow I know I went from MCU to this, I'm jumping up. Elon, if you somehow see this, I'm on board to find out for the people, of course, for the people.
you
But
willing to go? You willing to take that one way
yes,
trip?
sir. Hey man, I got to do what I got to do for the people. But no, I mean,
People.
even before like we were to explore any other types of worlds, um, on this planet, it was about 6 or 7 months ago that they did a what's called a lidar scan on the Amazon rainforest. And I know we
Hmm.
had shared a few notes, and that's the one I was telling you about. It's so they did a lidar scan that can see underneath the solid surface up to 2,000 feet. And
Nice.
they found when they were scanning the Amazon rainforest because in the late 1500s, I forgot the guy's name, but he was a Spanish explorer, and they were going fishing for food. It was him and three other guys, and they got sucked in by the current and dragged all the way through the Amazon, and they got let out to the I think it was the. All right, we are back. I'm sorry about
Yeah,
that. I do
action.
apologize again, but damn, yeah, I don't know what happened there. Anyways, deleted a bunch of games, got storage. Tells me I need to buy another hard drive, maybe another terabyte. We'll be up to 4K. But
Wow.
yeah, no, unnecessary. Anyways, back to where we were. Um, before we can leave this planet, I was talking about the Amazon and that Spanish explorer that had three buddies. I'll summarize it to keep it short and sweet. Yeah, he was a Spanish explorer. He had three buddies of his, and they were exploring or trying to get food. And when they got in the boat, they were going fishing or whatever, and they got just sucked up by the current down the Amazon River, ended up on the Atlantic coast, and along their journey on being pushed out by the current, they seen a
Mhm.
lot of discoveries from cities to just a lot of, I guess I wouldn't say ancient architecture for them, but it was just cities itself, and they were discovering that. And when they went back, they tried to repeat it, but they weren't able to. And so nobody had believed them. And so fast forward to today's date, January 18th, 2023. About 6 months ago, they did a what's called a lidar scan, which is like I told you a little bit before we froze up. Um, it can what is it, 2,000 feet under a
1,000.
solid surface, and it can scan an area, and that's what they did to certain parts of the Amazon. And like I had told you in the notes a little bit, in El Dorado, which is I guess known as a gold city, they
City of
found,
Gold.
there you go, and they found the cities. A lot of them, of course, were decomposed and broken down and a lot of stuff like that. But if you find cities, I mean, what does that tell you? What kind of architecture was not only there, but the people themselves that were there? And it
Yep.
makes you think about, Columbus in 1492 and also playing the whole prank. Ever heard the story about what Columbus told the people about the eclipse? Have you ever heard about that?
Nah, man, enlighten me.
So I'll keep it short and sweet. So basically, Columbus, he sailed in and everything, and they needed a lot of materials for their voyage back. They ran out.
Mhm.
And so Columbus knew that there was going to be an eclipse on the following Tuesday. And so he told the people that he was needing, the materials from that. Basically, if he didn't get it, that, it was basically he needed it for his voyage, but they needed it to survive and to keep pushing forward. They couldn't fall short. And I'm pretty sure if they would have had it to give, maybe they would have. Who knows? But
Mhm.
he tells them, well, I'm going to have my God take away your moon, which will kill all of your crops. And he knew that there was going to be an eclipse the following Tuesday. They didn't even know what an eclipse was. So the Tuesday comes, they're like, nah, you know what, we're good, like, tell your God whatever. Tuesday pulls up, eclipse is coming down, and they're like, he said, I'll give you some time. He said, whatever you need, we can make it happen, and I'll tell my
Yeah.
God, kill it, like, we're good. And so, of course, you don't know what an eclipse is. You see it, and you're like, all right, nah, tell your God, cut it out, cut it out. So
Yeah. Yeah.
they end up giving them the stuff, and I'm not sure if they were able to make it, out of the next year or whatever. And Columbus got the materials. He sailed back, and a lot of people don't know that story about Columbus. And that's not to try to paint a bad picture about him, but it's just something that
Yeah.
whenever I heard it, I was like, bro, that's some low key savage shit. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, he just finessed, and he was able to
I
sail
mean,
away.
finesse,
That was a hard
finesse the
finesse.
fuck out of us. Yeah, that was finessing at its max.
Oh yeah,
Like, it's like, chill, God, it's cool.
he's in that
They handed the
layoff.
stuff over.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
that's crazy to me. But yeah, just
And
to from that going back to the whole lidar scan and everything like that, it makes me think like what else is in the Amazon as well as Antarctica being one of the first printed pieces on the map, and it's been dated back to one of the first maps discovered. That it was actually printed. Was it? Yeah, Antarctica. That's still obviously covered in snow. It's frozen, and
mhm.
it's one of the first printed locations. I'm not sure if it was Pangea or even before. I'm not sure how that was. I have to do my research on that, which I mean, it's a lot to dig up, but still, just thinking about that,
Mhm.
it's like, what would we find in there if we were able to unthaw it while still surviving? Because I'm sure, if we unthaw that thing, we're donezo. So that
Bro,
and
freaking.
what's to you more important? Would you, if we were able to survive, seeing what's in Antarctica or the Amazon, if we were to excavate either one?
Man, bro. I would say Antarctica. I would be more fascinated with Antarctica because the simple fact is, you look at how the landmass of Antarctica in general,
Mm-hmm.
it tells you a lot about how Earth once was. I mean, that amount of frozen water on the planet, when you just think about, okay, if it does melt, just as an example, if Antarctica just completely melts, what do we find in that ice? Um, I think that, whether it be fossilized prehistoric creatures, whether it be, old um, agricultural relics,
Mm-hmm.
maybe old plants, old trees, old seeds, stuff like that that we could find there. Um, Hell, I mean, aliens or some shit. We
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
We just don't know. Same thing for the Amazon rainforest, or just in the Amazon in general. It's just so much. Even looking at what is it, the saying, over 70% of the Earth's seas have been unexplored.
Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
as humans, we've explored a lot of the land that we've inhabited,
Mm-hmm.
but the land that we haven't inhabited, it's really hard for us to get a grip because you think about, like, for instance, in America, how comfortable it is to set up an infrastructure here because
Mm-hmm.
you have places like California, Hawaii, Texas, New York. These are places that are subjected to hurricanes, floods, and earthquakes and wildfires and stuff like that, and even volcanoes, but they're not impossible to live and develop societies on. But you look at a place like Antarctica, for instance, it's very challenging to live in a place like Antarctica. So
Mm-hmm.
um, and then with the risk of polar ice caps melting, I think that's why, as a civilization, we've decided like not to try and colonize Antarctica, because the moment we start setting up factories, the moment we start bringing vehicles and stuff like that, and the O2 in that area begins to warm the ice caps around, you throw off the entire ecosystem of the world around you, because
Mm-hmm.
once those ice caps begin to melt, you raise the sea level. The sea level raising creates tsunamis, floods. You have more
Mm-hmm.
intense hurricanes. You throw off the climate, things like that in general. So I think that with our climate already being in the state that it's in, I think that a lot of, world governments are just like, hey, we understand how delicate Antarctica is. We not going mess with it. And you
Mm-hmm.
have it throughout history. Some explorers have taken the risk of going and trying to excavate and explore
Mm-hmm.
um,
It's fascinating,
Antarctica.
man. It's very
Super
fascinating
fascinating.
to see
Yeah.
like what's on there, as well as like, I mean, when I think about both Antarctica and then the Amazon, I'm not good with bugs. I see a big ass mosquito coming around. I don't know how I'm gonna react. I might pop off. But then I
And
go to Antarctica. I don't do well in the cold either, man. I might need to bundle up, and there's no telling how long I'm gonna last at either one. But there is a place
exactly.
in Canada. I don't know if you heard of it. It's called Oak Island. Have
Oak
you heard of
Island,
them?
I've heard of it. Yeah,
How
heard
there
of it.
was I forgot how many. It was in the 18th century that pirates
Mhm.
had so much gold they didn't know what to do with it. It was out the ass. So they were just like, okay, let's find a place. So they dug, I don't know how deep, but in Oak Island, it's a man-made island. Well, not man-made, but they made it man-made afterwards when they rigged it with booby traps everywhere.
Mhm.
And so they made it so hard for people to get their gold that it was impossible for them to get it back. And to this day, there's still being traps made, and some not being traps made, traps that are being set off by
Mhm.
explorers and different people. Like, who doesn't want gold? And so a
Right.
lot of people are still trying to get into it, and it's just fascinating that even today with modern technology, we still can't get in there, and that to me is just crazy.
It's like when you lock yourself out your Facebook.
Yeah, man.
You
it's,
know, like
it's got some
it's
gold in
so
there.
secure you could lock yourself out.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's also another interesting thing. When we look at societies, like ancient civilizations, when we talk prehistoric, um, and look at stuff like civilizations like ancient Egypt,
Hmm.
Mesopotamia. We look at ancient Sumeria. We look at the uh, like Aztecs and the Mayans, and even ancient Rome and ancient Greece. We're always marveled at their accomplishments, their achievements. It's almost like when a baby speaks his first word and you're just so amazed, like, oh my God, it talked.
Hmm.
We often discount the intelligence and the capabilities of those ancient societies.
Hmm.
For us in modern times, our main difference is that we have stuff like electricity
Hmm.
and computers, things like that. That's what makes us different. They didn't have electricity in those times, they didn't have computers. We can accredit stuff like our understanding of the world around us to the technology that we have.
Hmm.
And but the concept of our society isn't too different, like they always say, like the Egyptians, were known for their medicine.
Hmm.
Ancient Central Americans were known for their agriculture and their trade. The Mayans were kind of like the United States of back then. They often traded, and even nations that they invaded, they often took over and made better because they opened up trade routes and provided stability to those regions.
Hmm.
You look at ancient Egypt. People always question like, "Oh, damn! I wonder who built the pyramids." The ancient Egyptians built the pyramids because
Yeah.
we. That's why I say we often discount, because we're like, how did they have the technology to do this? How did they know to do this? The human brain didn't become more intelligent in 1998, or it
Mm-hmm.
didn't become more intelligent in the 1920s or 1950s. What happened was the right person came along and just completed the equations that people before them put together, and that's what gave us the light bulb. That's what gave us the AC/DC sockets. That's what gave us the automobile and other things like that. Is we continue to build upon the information that those before us have laid
Mm-hmm.
forth. So that's not to say that in ancient Egypt, have Egypt continued its run, they wouldn't have ever came across electricity or cell phones or anything like that. It's a possibility that they couldn't, but they eventually would have got the information necessary to make stuff like that possible, because you continue to build upon science and mathematics and formulas and things like that. So when you look at, like you're talking about the cities in the Amazon,
Mm.
the world changes. We see earthquakes, floods, things like that displace societies, displace cities, and displace people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you think about how many years ago, like I'm 30, so just thinking about how much the world has changed over the last 30 years since 1992 up until today. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we've seen the dawn of the internet. Computers have gotten faster.
Email.
Email,
Yeah.
cancer treatment has gotten
Mm-hmm.
better. iPhones, compute. Like, look at what we're
Mm-hmm.
doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're in two different places, and yet we are talking to each other. Using
Yeah.
computers and things like that. So, social media.
Mm-hmm.
We've had the James Webb Telescope. We've
Mm.
had so many technological advances in 30 years, but the only reason that those technological advances are there is because people 30 years prior putting in work on working on semiconductor chips and
Mm-hmm.
evolving computer technology and studying various aspects of understanding how radio waves and etc, all this stuff work. So,
Yeah.
and then 30 years before that, they were trying to figure out, like, okay, how do we launch a rocket fast enough to break through the atmosphere,
Mm-hmm.
and then before that they were trying, so it's just a culmination of us building on top of each other. But the basic building blocks have always been there. Us building cities and creating these patriarchs and these hierarchies where, we have leaders and governments and, different roles of people in society to help society function. Because as humans, as individual as we are, we all like to, it's just natural biology that we want to come together and, create cities and towns and things like that. That's how we stay safe.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes from like a primitive programming by nature. Because if you look at back when cavemen were around, if you had one caveman who wandered by himself, he was more likely to be attacked by predators at that time than if you had 10 humans wandering together,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so you look at, it's biologically programmed, and animals operate like this too. Animals run in packs and herds, not because they just, shit, these people look like me, I'm just gonna stand over here and be with them, but it's often safer because when predators are around, you often have one person or one animal spots the predator, and they can alert others and they all take off running, and the predators can't get us all, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's programmed into us by Mother Nature to have these tendencies.
Right.
Now, when you look at how the world changes from a geological standpoint, whether this, like, because we talk about global warming is a big topic in today's conversation. So you think about how we were just talking about Antarctica and excavating Antarctica, what that could do to the polar ice caps and how they could cause the sea levels to rise and things like that. And you talk about Pangea,
Mm.
when you could look at the carve out of all the continents and see that maybe once upon a time they were all connected, like one huge solid landmass.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the geological effect of that change from everything being one continent, breaking off into its own separate continents, and then something like Antarctica moving to a place in the world where it's just frozen over. That changes like that displace civilizations. It displaced cities that were built back then. You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, geopolitical warfare. You look at Rome used to be the pinnacle, the most powerful civilization in the land. Now we go visit Rome on vacation. Like Rome is like a little small country with a leaning tower. There's America and Russia and China are the powerful nations now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So things change over time. So I believe that there may have been cities of gold. You could read stories about El Dorado through numerous texts.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, Indiana Jones. There was an Indiana Jones film about the city of El Dorado.
Mm-hmm.
And supposedly that theory was like aliens came down and had the humans mine gold and build cities, for the aliens. And then one day the aliens up and left, and then the cities went into ruins and things like that, and were lost to the new world.
Mm.
So um,
Yeah, no.
it's something to believe, man. If we put a national, like worldwide effort into exploring our planet, I'm pretty sure we can uncover a lot of things that, can explain a lot about ancient civilizations. Like right now, that job is left up to archaeologists and scientists, and
Mm-hmm.
those people are commonly disregarded by the public.
Mm-hmm.
We focus more on our government and our military than we focus on our science community and what they're discovering and figuring out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just natural as us as people, because a lot of people don't really understand the scientific terminology, but we can understand political and social terminology,
Mm-hmm.
So we tend to focus in more on that and drive more of a push to, because we care more about, oh, who is president and who is, what laws are being passed and what countries at war right now and stuff. We care more about that stuff than trying to figure out like what ancient civilizations can we find in Antarctica or in the Amazon, or
Mm-hmm.
just on these remote islands and stuff like that.
Yeah,
That's just
for sure.
where we're at with it right now.
No, I get you for sure. It's more about like well today is like what's impacting us. What's things that are what's quote unquote impacting us. Because I'm
Right.
not gonna say no names, but Kanye's been wilding lately, and a lot of people seem to get affected by the words he
Hmm.
says. And truthfully, and this is no disrespect to anybody that he has or even to him in general. Somehow, if he comes across this, that's three people in this podcast. But yeah, so like people tend to get affected by things that in hindsight will not truly affect their day most of the time.
Right.
Like what he
Yeah.
says, and maybe it's because I'm not, of the Jewish community, it's I definitely understand,
Hmm.
but it's also like it
Hmm.
doesn't affect you what one person says. Now, if he said I got nukes pointed directly at you, okay, that's affecting my day
Hmm.
because I might not be here tomorrow. But truthfully, there's things that I feel like people take too serious or give too much
Oh yeah.
power and too much light, on it. And
Right.
if we were, I know this is a huge, way out of line step, but if all the nations on Earth, like every person, were to somehow put everything aside and to like make it work, the amount of things that
Hmm.
we could accomplish in a 100-year span, 50-year span, 20-year span would
Oh
be
yeah.
would be absolutely absurd. And also like if we were, I mean, yeah, I don't want to melt the polar ice caps, but if we were to even do Amazon or just anywhere of these places like that, it would be,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a way to get, if we wanted to explore the sea, how you said 70% is what we don't have tapped into. Okay, well, let's find a way. China, I know they got some shit. If we can go below that pressure zone where it, obviously will explode, if we can get below that and
Hmm.
genuinely see where everything turns dark and the pressure itself. But if we can get there and genuinely see what's in the ocean or even Antarctica or the Amazon, I do believe there's got to be something there. And even what
Hmm.
makes me, I know I'm going full circle here, never done that in my life, but going to like the pyramids and Pangea in that aspect. So like to me, I don't believe that Pangea is real because how is it that the pyramids are balanced and aligned with north, south, east, and west perfectly
Hmm.
if they broke off? You know what I'm saying? Like how does that make sense?
Hmm.
Because it's like they broke off and it's just that's God's timing or that's whatever you believe in is timing to where it sits perfectly on the earth to where it aligns perfectly with everything. I think
Yeah.
it's off like a 60th of a centimeter, something super small. But I mean, maybe
Yeah.
that comes with weathering, erosion. I don't know what it could be, shifting of the plates. But that's what makes me think about it, and it starts making me like just question. I'm like, damn, well, like, how does that make sense? Like, it doesn't like something does not adding up to me.
There's a
So,
lot of information that's lost in translation. I would say that the pyramids were definitely after Pangea. I
mm-hmm,
think we could attest that Pangea is more prehistoric. That would be, something before humans, maybe at the dawn of humans, dawn of Neanderthals,
mm-hmm,
maybe before we actually started to build cities.
mm-hmm.
Um, and you could see that prevalence because you look at, just as an example, let's use dragons as an example.
Okay,
How many different cultures around the world have dragons in them?
it's a good amount. You know what I'm saying? A
You know,
few of them.
you know, you look at, ancient Chinese cultures, they
Mm-hmm,
had dragons. Look at middle, middle and dark age
mm-hmm.
European cultures, like
Yeah.
Game of Thrones, for say, they
Okay.
had dragons. Look at Mayan temples, they had dragons.
Mm-hmm.
These are three different nations that are in very like different parts of the world. It's not like Mayans are right next to Europe, so they could have just been like, trading
Yeah.
ideas about dragons, and then they was like Asia was across the street, so they like, ah, shit, let's pass the dragons on to them too.
Yeah.
Not they, but they are on different parts of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we're talking about a time like you're talking about a creature
Mm-hmm.
that predates email, that predates text messages, that predates the internet.
Yeah.
So how is it that this one creature is common across various cultures and civilizations throughout time? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, well, throughout time, but just on our planet. And so at one time there had to be some unifying communication amongst various cultures.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I say we often today discount prehistoric and ancient cultures because we're marveled at the fact that every time we figured out that they had certain artifacts and certain things in their culture back then, but we also have to remember that, like I was saying, it's not like people learned algebra in the 1900s.
Mm-hmm.
The understanding of astronomy dates back thousands of years, like biblical times.
Mm-hmm.
So we had an understanding of astronomy back then because people simply just looked up. There was no Facebook, there was no Kim
Mm-hmm.
Kardashians and stuff like that back then. So you got to think that what was going through people's minds back then that made what did they focus on? What did the scholars of that time focus on? Because intelligence and what we consider like the smartest people of our day and age, though that's not a mutation that happened recently.
Mm-hmm.
Like Steve Jobs' intellect to be able to think isn't something that's new that came about in the 1980s and 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that was prevalent since way before, you know, Eastern colonials like came over to our land.
Yeah.
So when you think about ancient Egypt, before those pyramids were built, they had an understanding of masonry and
Mm-hmm.
geometry. Think about it, they built cities.
Mm-hmm.
These people built cities. So to even build a city, you have to have some type of understanding of geometry. To have an understanding of geometry, you got to be able to understand mathematics. Be able to understand mathematics, you got to have a intellect to understand that measurements and 1 plus 1 equals 2 and things like that. So this is stuff that has developed so far over time, and to us it's a marvel. It blows our mind because
Mm-hmm.
of the simple fact it's like we like, how did they function without calculators and the internet? Like how we
Yeah.
can't fathom it because this is what we grew up with.
It's
So
also,
we
yeah.
can't
It's like our
you know
perspective as well. Like with,
yeah.
and that's whenever this is what brought up the whole idea for me, was looking at Joe Rogan, and he had a guest on named Brian Greene. I'm not sure if you heard of him, um,
Mm,
but he's just a modern day scientist, and he said what struggles with a lot of modern day scientists, and even just scientists dating back, are that they look at the past with their perspective from today, and it's like they can't
mm,
imagine somebody building a pyramid, sliding rocks down from hundreds of feet away, on just whatever it was, the gravel or mud, whatever it was back then that they tried to slide them
gravel and
through.
using ropes and yeah,
Yeah, like things like that, pulleys and access ways like that. And so when you think about it, it's hard for us to wrap our head around it. Like, damn, how did they build that pyramid, or how did they move these stones, or how did they do more
hmm
back then with a hammer than I can do today with a MacBook? And it's just like you can't wrap your head around it because truthfully, we don't know. Like we have no idea.
you
And
don't.
it's like Elon today, or going back Nikola Tesla, or going back to even just I couldn't even think of a famous historic figure like that. I don't know what I was
Yeah.
about to say, Albert Einstein, but that
Leonardo
was
da
an
Vinci,
yeah,
you
like
know,
it's just people like that
you can
that
look
we
at
can't even wrap our head around how smart they were, and given
Isaac Newton,
yeah, like you
you
just
know,
like how did they
Plato,
do it? Damn.
Pythagoras, you know, it's because you think about the privileges that we have now, the 40-hour work week.
Hmm.
You know, that shit wasn't around back then.
Yeah.
They weren't just like punching a clock, like, okay, let me make sure my time's
Yeah.
straight, so my check come out every 2 weeks. Or
Yeah.
that wasn't the case back then.
Hmm.
Didn't have stuff like paid child leave and cell phones with Facebook and Instagram and video
Hmm.
games. There was no Microsoft, no Xbox. So you got to think people had more time to build stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, it was more of a work ethic. Now you have so you look at let's go back to ancient Egypt, right?
Hmm.
Say for instance, ancient Egypt had a population of 500,000 people.
Hmm.
There was a great chance that a lot of the men back then would be laborers, if not agricultural farmers.
Hmm.
You know, today's culture, you have a portion, like a fraction of the men in our society today that are laborers. A lot of us now work retail.
Hmm.
A lot of us now work, from home. A lot of us now are mechanics and, do various other jobs because over time, so many other fields have sprouted out from the advancements of technology and society. They didn't have firefighters back then.
Hmm.
They didn't have police officers back then. I mean, they had like guards and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
you know, and so now today it may be harder to build a pyramid because we have to make sure that we have trained people who are
Yeah.
architects and engineers. Like we
Yeah.
got to make sure that we have architects and
Hmm.
engineers. Back then it was kind of like, I mean, carpentry was more valuable back then than it is now.
Yeah.
Agriculture, like now we don't nobody want to be a farmer, bro.
Nah, hell no.
Nobody wants to be a farmer, right?
Nah, absolutely not.
Back then, being a farmer was damn near like being a damn entrepreneur,
Yeah.
because we didn't have mass production of food back then.
Hmm.
It was the food, like we didn't have Monsanto and McDonald's and
Yeah.
Whataburger and stuff
Hmm.
like that. It was Ezekiel
Hmm.
and Thalamy, the farmers, they
Hmm.
provided the crops and went into market and sold their stuff,
Imagine that though.
cattle and stuff.
Imagine, I was gonna say,
Imagine.
just imagine, like, you tell somebody, like, that was the past modern day entrepreneur, like you said. You just tell somebody, like, well, what do you do? So I'm growing that shit that you eat. And it's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah,
No, that
like
guy
I'm a
definitely, what I'm
farmer.
saying, he gets around. I'll say that.
Yeah,
Ezekiel,
hell
hey,
yeah.
come on now. But yeah, no, I definitely, that'd
Nah,
be,
you see what I'm saying? So
yeah.
like we have to today put ourselves in the mindset of what prehistoric people their mindset. We got to
Hmm.
see how they were seeing life. We can't think about it in terms of I don't know how they made it without cell phones.
Hmm.
We just got to think there are no cell phones. So people wrote letters. You had to make sure the literacy rate was on point or messages didn't get out fast enough. There's so many different
Hmm.
aspects to society, but society was still there. Like not to shift the conversation, but when we talk about gender roles, right?
Hmm.
Well, what's the role of a man in society? What's the role of a woman in society?
Hmm.
People think that in 2008 or in 1700s, like some group of people came up with gender roles. Like, no, gender roles were important because back before there was technology, back before there was a lot of the comforts and privileges that we have today, women wasn't going out and hunting for food.
Yeah.
That wasn't the shit that was happening. Like, you got a group of women going out trying to hunt a saber-toothed tiger and they got babies that it like, nah.
Yeah.
It
Nah.
was it
Yeah.
was the men that was going out
Mm-hmm.
hunting for food. It was the men that was carrying big blocks of stone and trees and tree limbs and branches so they could build houses and stuff like that. The women weren't doing those type of jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So was a point in time where that seemed feasible and tangible to everybody. Let the men go out and hunt and gather the food and stuff like that. Let the women stay home and take care of the babies and cook the food and
Yeah.
tend to the hurt and stuff and tend to the needy and stuff like that. You
Mm-hmm.
know, that's how society began to structure itself because it made sense. You got men who are faster, who could run faster. They have like more, their muscle mass and bone density is typically stronger, so they could take on those more harsh, gritty roles in society.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that women are less valuable, women played an equally important role in society because if as a man I'm killing this lion or I'm killing this, this mammoth or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
if I bring that home, a woman's prepping the food and cooking it, that's balanced. That's equal. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody to bring the food and somebody to prepare it.
Yeah.
Today's society, it's like, well, I could go out and get my own food and bring it home
Yeah.
and prep it myself. I don't need,
Mm-hmm.
and if that's what how you live in, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But don't discount our ancestors because they did. You as a woman today, you don't have to worry about going out. Like your fear is going out and having a man stalk you and kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, it was more so like
It's a
I
damn
could.
animal.
I, I'm worried about a pack of coyotes. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
No, I get what you're saying for sure.
you know what I'm
There's that
saying?
balance because I think one of the quotes that I heard recently was Jordan Peterson. He had said because Joe Rogan caught a crazy amount of backlash whenever he said that transgender women should not, like a man transferring to a woman, should not be able to fight other women. Like it shouldn't be. And he caught a lot of backlash. And his argument was whenever Jordan Peterson said a strong, like one of the stronger women cannot beat all men. They can maybe beat a few, and this is just strictly for the UFC. Maybe it doesn't go like this in the world, but a very strong woman can beat a variant of men, while a very strong man can beat most women. Just in fighting, not in life. So if y'all come at me on Twitter, hey man, I'm trying to disclose that
Don't
information,
cancel my
but yeah,
boy.
don't come on. But no,
Don't
so
cancel my boy.
so just that, and whenever I heard that, I was like, that makes sense. And when you think about it, like a lot of people in today, they try to bring up the whole equality thing, and it's like I get it, I respect it, but you
Mhm.
put a guy versus a girl in like a UPS warehouse, and their job is strictly to get these heavy ass packages from over here to over here.
Mhm.
9 times out of 10, I would put my money on the guy to do that job. And it's just like you
Mhm.
can pick and choose these arguments, and I feel like a lot of people struggle with that, and they're very just like narrow-minded. A lot of them are just like because of what they hear, instantly they're like, no, that's
Yeah.
right, that's what I believe, that's what it has to be. And it's like
Yeah.
that's not necessarily true in every single field, but yeah, I mean, you pick and choose, and I see the equality, but in times like this, or even in the UFC or boxing or anything like that, and I
Mhm.
would feel bad watching it, but a woman would get their ass beat by a man that just transformed into a woman, and I promise you. And I'm not saying I would love to see it,
Yeah.
but I think it would definitely help the whole equality scheme right now.
Argument. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the world today has changed
Oh yeah,
a lot
drastically.
in prehistoric humans, So we got accustomed to those gender roles because it instilled in a lot of men that our job is to go out, provide, take on the grunt of society,
Mm-hmm.
you know, provide for our family, provide for women and things like that. And now in modern times, because through our political efforts, we have leveled the playing fields from a social standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that, for instance, there's always that term like, oh, that's a man's job. Let
Yeah.
a man do a man's job. But that was the case because men did dominate a lot of fields in society because we were fresh off of the whole men going out and hunting for food, men going out and
Mm-hmm.
exploring, men going out and doing this while the woman stays at home. And then you have like now a lot of women want to get out and become a part of the conversation too. So a lot of women are getting out trying to vote. A lot of women are getting out trying to work, and support themselves, especially women who have gone through situations to where like they relied on a man and that man wasn't there for them, or they had kids with a man and he up and left, or
Mm-hmm.
like they were abused by a man and they now are trying to live on their own. So it's this is going to be a side effect and fallout of all of that. Women
Mm-hmm.
empowerment is real, and I think that we should empower women to go out and to pursue their dreams and become the best versions of themselves. I don't think that the argument should be that a woman could do everything that a man could do. If y'all gonna make that argument, I think it needs to be more detailed because now you have a lot of women that are convinced that if a man could lift a 500-pound box, I can lift a 500-pound box, which may be true if you got the physical build for it, because you have a lot of women who are into powerlifting and
Yeah, I
and
seen a few.
weightlifting and stuff like that. But that's not all women,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
So I think that at this point we're trying to take biology out of the equation. We're trying to bring in our rationalizations and like our morality.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're experiencing is like a duality of conflict between how men think and how women think. That's why a lot of these online tabloids, you see a lot of men trying to question women and a lot of women questioning men, and like it seems like this going back and forth. Oh, well, men this masculinity, feminism, and it's creating this battlefield damn near,
Mm-hmm.
this battle of the sexes. When um that's why I believe when Jordan Peterson talks about equality of outcome,
Mm-hmm.
because I believe that women could be just as good at engineering as men. I believe women could be just as good as being CEOs, can be just as good as doctors, just as good teachers, just as good parents, just as good mechanics, and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I think that with, as far as intelligence, as far as outcome, I think there is an equality from that point. I think that if you tell a male doctor and a female doctor to perform a surgery, I don't think that there's anything in that man that would cause him to have the upper hand and advantage of this woman
Mm-hmm.
from a biological standpoint.
Right.
Like I think that a female could be just as good of a brain surgeon as a man can,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I think that's to me the core of it. Now when you talk about
I was gonna say NBA.
which
I was gonna say NBA and WNBA because a lot of the argument that I hear, like from your standpoint, like strictly biological, I understand. But now when people say, now we deserve to get paid the same on certain levels, certain jobs, you put the first thing that comes to my mind, LeBron, top WNBA star. I would have said Brittany Griner. I don't know how that situation's going. If she's going to hoop again to lace
uh,
him up, I don't know.
never
But
know.
I mean, yeah. But she had called out LeBron, DeMarcus Cousins, and a lot of people. And when you put it
Mhm.
up to that, and they ask like, well, why don't we get paid the same as them, or why don't we get paid the same in other fields? And it's just strictly because I'm not gonna say the men put on a better show or anything like that, but it's just strictly down to like, you ever tune
That's what
into
it
it?
is.
Well, beyond that, you ever tune into a WNBA game?
Yeah, I've
Honestly,
watched a few.
you what?
Yeah,
I
I have. I used
haven't.
to.
I just watched highlights, and dude, it's a tough watch. It's a tough watch.
Yeah, because men, from an athletic standpoint, like men can excel and break bounds of what we deem possible in athletics. You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it used to be surprising to find a woman that could dunk a basketball.
Hmm.
It's nothing. You see men dunk all day, and it's not even surprising. But when you see a woman dunk a basketball with the same veracity as like a LeBron James or Michael Jordan, a Kobe Bryant or something like
Yeah.
that, then it's kind of like, okay, cool. men's sports are often more intense because men are more physical creatures. We get
Mm-hmm.
our testosterone makes us want to compete. That's why men play football. They're willing to run at each other at 20 to 30 miles an hour,
Yeah.
run into each other, to see who can hit the hardest. Women aren't like that. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? And not saying that women can't be like that. Women could start running, putting on helmets and wearing tights and running into each other with footballs, but it's just that men have something inside of them that make them want to like excel at doing that type of
Mm-hmm.
conflictive, violent act.
Yeah.
Women don't have that. You know what I'm saying? Not saying that they don't at all. It's just
Mm-hmm.
not as present in women as it is in men. Um, the NBA is just more entertaining. The NFL is just
Mm-hmm.
more entertaining. It draws more people in. It's not to say that, oh, well, society supports men in sports, but they don't support women in sports. No, you have a lot of support for women's sports.
Mm-hmm.
Thing is, it's just not that interesting. You just
Mm-hmm.
got to call it like it is. It is interesting. Don't get me wrong. I love watching Cheryl Swoops. Sue Bird was one of my favorite basketball players, along with Diana, WNBA players, along with Diana Taurasi. You
Mm-hmm.
know, so I loved watching women's sports.
Yeah.
I like watching women compete because at the end of the day, it is still interesting to me to see both men and women compete and to be able to critique and break down the differences. But it's a prevalent difference in LeBron James. I don't care what I don't care how, look, I don't care what Brittany Griner says. She cannot go up against, she may be able to give LeBron a run for his money.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the power output, Brittany Griner doesn't have it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you look at the physical structure of LeBron James. How many
Come on.
women in sports right now have the same physical structure as LeBron James? Their
Mm-hmm.
muscle mass, the strength, the veracity, the speed, the agility. You
Mm-hmm.
know that's not saying that women are lesser creatures. It just may be that women aren't meant to be like LeBron James.
Women are not
That's all
LeBron,
it is.
man. I'll say that.
Women are like
They're
LeBron
not
James.
LeBron. They don't
So
got the Nike deal. And I'll be damned if I see someone throw it off the backboard and slam it back like LeBron. I'll pay to go see the WNBA game. No cap. I swear I would.
yeah. Now, if women started playing basketball just like men started playing basketball, then you might start to see that transition of people and sponsors and more contracts and stuff like that, and higher paying
Mm-hmm.
contracts and more ratings and views and stuff like that start rolling over to women's sports. But
Mm-hmm.
the thing is that's not the case now because women aren't as aggressive from that physical standpoint
Yeah.
that you see like men. And this is a thing that like people complain about masculinity, testosterone and all of that. That's why you see men excelling in men's sports excel so much because a lot of that testosterone is channeled in sports. Women don't have that much testosterone to be big, brawny, buff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you seen Wonder Woman, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Amazonians in Themyscira, if if you put like I don't know if you watch the women's Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
This
Some
is
of it,
why I
yeah.
say okay, so if you watch most women compete in the Olympics, these are the strongest, the fastest, the most ferocious women in sports from every country, all these different nations, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you look at how spread out that is. That's across the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
We're not tuning into Chinese basketball. We don't care about
Nope.
overseas basketball. Like, right? Because it's
Nah,
not that
nah.
interesting.
It's not.
The NBA is where it's at because within the NBA, you have so much talent
Mm-hmm.
in the single NBA alone that makes it interesting. Until that same type of talent, ferociousness, and execution is exhibited in every other international basketball league around the world,
Mm-hmm.
the NBA is going to forever reign dominant. The Olympics, you get a culmination of the best athletes from the all the greatest countries from across the world. So when you watch women compete in the Olympics, it is more exciting.
Right.
because you're seeing the best athletes. You're not getting the mid-level and low-level athletes mixed in with the best athletes. You're getting the best athletes.
Hmm.
So that's why when you watch women compete in the Olympics, it's a lot more exciting because now you're watching all the best women athletes on the
Hmm.
planet, not just confined to 30 teams, and then you might got in this league of 30 teams, you might have like maybe 15 superstar, phenomenal, once in a lifetime athletes.
Hmm.
No, that's not the case. And so when you talk about men competing in women's sports and women competing in men's sports, there is a disparity there because well, I think that transgenders should be allowed to compete
Hmm.
in men and women's sports. I think there should be an evaluation for that because you don't
Hmm.
want to give somebody an unfair advantage because you do have a lot of women work really hard to get into these sports and to work really hard to win and maintain in these sports and
Right.
to have a biological man, especially if they became transgender after puberty,
Hmm.
their bone density and all that stuff is already set, you know what I'm saying? They go
No,
in and
yeah. It's
and they start dominating a female sport. That creates an unfair advantage because that's just like it's like if LeBron James all of a sudden decided he wanted to
I was
play in
just
the
gonna bring
NBA.
that up. Yeah, like I was just
I
gonna
mean the
say that too.
WNBA.
If he was literally like, even at 40, right? He's what, 41 right now, or 40 years old? I think he is.
Hmm.
I'll say 41,
Yep.
right? 40. So say he throws on a wig, right? Puts on a little lipstick, whatever he has to do. He says, I
Hmm.
identify as this now. Okay. He goes in the WNBA. He just dropped 50 on the Rockets last night. He just dropped 50
By
on us
himself.
by himself. So you throw him
Himself.
in a WNBA uniform at 41 years of age. Guarantee you, no cap, he's the next World Chamberlain in the WNBA. Like, and people will
He's
complain
dropping a
about
hundred
that
easy.
every game. Just throw it up. He's yamming it, and so people will have a problem with that because now it's like, oh well, now it's unfair. Now he's doing this, and I don't feel like they would genuinely be happy, even if they were given what they wanted. You know what I'm saying? And it's like
Hmm.
you just can't. At the end of the day, you can't make everybody happy, and I think so many people, it just rubs off on them, and there's just too much negativity, and you can't clean that up with the tissue, and you can't even clean it up with a lot of people's mindsets today. It's just what they're taught.
Because today it's not about being understood or having a conversation. It's why do you have to question? Why do you
Hmm.
have to question it at all?
Yeah.
And it's easy for like I was watching a video today where they were having the same debate
Hmm.
about this and they're like, okay, well, where are your stats to prove all of this? And it's like you don't really need stats when you see transgender men that turn to women going into women's sports and exceeding not just over time.
Hmm.
People get good over time. Like, like okay, if maybe when they first got into the sport, women was just constantly dominating and dominating and dominating for years and years, and then finally they got their breakthrough, and then they came up and won a championship.
Yeah.
No, what you see is this transgender, this original man who transitioned to a woman goes into this sport and then off the back immediately starts to excel amongst all the other women who have been working at this same sport their entire life.
Hmm.
You know, it's different because LeBron James has competition. He's just the greatest of our generation. But when Kobe was in, Kobe was the greatest. It was LeBron and Kobe, but Kobe was the person. And it's the
Hmm.
same thing with Michael Jordan, and they had their competition too. But when you have somebody who transitions and then they go into a sport and then they actively start tearing ass amongst everybody else who already been in that sport doing it already, it's an unfair advantage. So
Hmm.
I think that either you're gonna have transgender teams in the transgender league, or you probably want to kind of like you kind of want to figure out a way to regulate it to where it's still possible,
Hmm.
but we need to do this rigorous test first, or we need to kind of like analyze your body, your body density, your muscle mass, compare that to the most elite WNBA stars, the most elite women's swimmers, the most
Hmm.
elite female tennis players, to see if you can meet that particular standard. I think we would have to implement that because because you use that same argument as to why men shouldn't hit women.
Yeah.
Why men shouldn't hit women? Oh, because a man could hit a woman real hard. Or men are stronger than women. You know
Hmm.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, same thing in the
So
UFC as well. Like there's, I think the top weight class for women is 170. Top weight class at the peak is 285 for men. And it's like, you know how big of a gap that
okay,
is? You know how big of a gap
so
So you're
imagine
telling
that.
me Francis
Yeah,
Ngannou at 285 fights what's her name? I forgot. Amanda Nunes at 170, right? Or 165, or I think she's 150, whatever it is. And she's the
yeah.
best woman fighter right now. Well, she doesn't have the belts anymore. She's gonna reclaim it in March, whenever April. Versus Ngannou, who just left the UFC. You see them just fight in the street. I'm gonna tell you, man, it's gonna be a quick one, and it will not go well for her. I'll be honest with you.
Bro. Yeah,
She's
and it's
done
not to
so.
say that exactly. And the argument is, it's like, oh, we all trying to say that women are inferior and y'all are against. It's like, no, what we're trying to stop is setting so many people up for failure. Not saying
Mm,
that women can't compete against men. It's
mm,
just that there are a lot of different technicalities to that type of competition because you go to a basketball court in the street and you can see women and men playing basketball together. It
mm,
is possible. Not saying that it's impossible, right?
mm,
But the thing is when you start to say, okay, well, let's have men transition to women, and not saying that. Okay, so this is another thing to clear up too. I highly doubt that a man is going to transition to a woman just to compete in women's sports so they could
mm.
be winners,
Yeah.
right? Out of a million people, you might have one or two people who think like that.
Yeah.
I think that's something that somebody needs to say out loud. That's not
Yeah.
the case, right?
I
That's
don't
at
think
least
so
not
either.
how I see it.
Hmm.
I don't think that there are some men out there who are like, I'm not doing too good in male sports. Let me
Yeah.
transition to a women and try and compete just so I could be a winner.
Hmm.
I don't think that's the case. It's like I don't think it's the case that men would transition to women so they could go inside the women's restroom.
Hmm.
I don't think that that's the overall consensus, and I
There's
don't
probably a
think we
few
should
of them. There's probably a few of them, but
probably a
minuscule.
small percent, yeah, a small
Hmm.
minuscule portion of
Yeah.
perverted men who think like that.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think that's the overall consensus, and that's
For sure.
how I feel like sometimes that's how we're treating that. Like, oh, that's the
Hmm.
overall consensus. Men just want to go into women's sports so they could beat out all the women. That's I don't think that's the case. What I
Hmm.
think is that you have a male athlete who probably before they even decided they wanted to be an athlete, felt a form of gender dysphoria, wanted to transition, but also wants to compete. And because now they see themselves as the opposite sex, they
Hmm.
want to compete with the opposite sex. They don't want to
Yeah.
compete with men because they don't classify themselves as men, you
Hmm.
know? And so that's technicality of it is okay, well, you weigh 200 pounds and you've been a man, you've been going up against men, so fighting in their weight classes and fighting and working out and training to a man standard. So now you transition to a woman. Yeah, women could go in the gym and try and lift 200 pounds just like a man can, but just naturally, due to biology and due to science and due to
Hmm.
nature, women's muscle density and bone density is a lot different. So you think about Kimbo Slice
Bro.
street fighting. Think about Kimbo Slice
Yeah.
street fighting Selena Gomez, right?
Oh man, dude, that ain't gonna
Like
last long either.
it's not. And I know people may think like, oh, that's you're just being that's a scenario, but
Hmm.
that's logically how you have to think about it because if you a biological man, even if you on hormones and whatever,
Hmm.
if you get in the gym and bust your ass, your muscle density is still gonna outweigh and outrank that of your female counterparts.
Hmm.
So that's something that we have to be considerate of.
For sure.
So I think that that's a conversation that we should open up for because you ask the transgender community, they're gonna be like, yeah, we think that it should happen. You ask people who aren't transgender,
Hmm.
nah, we don't think. I think that we should have a multitude of scientists and athletes come together on this and
Hmm.
do the necessary research to decide what we should do. And if we should spring off and create a transgender league, the TBA or TNBA or whatever we want to call it, and let's do that. Let's be
Hmm.
open to that. So we can give that's what to me that's what equality is about. especially now that we are expanding our conversation about gender. That's what to me equality is about. Is we have men's basketball, we have women's basketball, we have transgender basketball as well. We have men's sports, we have women's sports, we have transgender sports as well. You know, that way you, I know that that's probably like, that maybe go far beyond it, just too innovative for the average person to consider,
Mm-hmm.
but that, that eliminates the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you have everybody in the world who's rooting on and supporting transgenders like they claim they do. Go and watch transgender sports too. Go buy tickets and show up to transgender basketball games.
Yeah.
Go support transgender athletes when they get contracts with Adidas and Nike and Jordan and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the type of, that's what I mean when I say quality of outcome
Yeah.
is leveling the playing field where everybody has a fair stake at achieving their goals. Because the spectrum is a lot more broad than man and woman. It used to just be man and woman. I was white man, black man, Mexican man, Asian man, white woman, black woman, Mexican woman, Asian woman, uh, transgender, LGBTQ,
Yeah.
white LGBT,
Yeah.
LGBTQ, black. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's just how our society is trained. It's changing. So we have to grow and adapt to that. We
Mm-hmm.
can't continue to sit around and have the same baseless arguments where we going back and forth with each other. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, transgender people are here. It's not a theory anymore. It's not an idea. They here. What are we
Yeah.
gonna do about it? What do we do about it? Okay, well they want to compete in sports. Okay, cool. Well, let's come up with a new basketball. Let's come up with a new league. Boom, we could recruit. And and
Yeah.
if you don't want to watch it, you don't have to watch it. If you want to watch it, you could watch it. Support it or not. But let's be innovative about these ideas and let's stop the dogma of getting online and arguing back and forth about, oh, you homophobic, you xenophobic, oh, you that's transphobic and this and that, because we're not
Mm-hmm.
getting nowhere with those type of arguments. It's time to get creative and innovative and come up with new ideas about how we can accommodate everybody into society, because that's what this is really about at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there was the Negro League. Like you look in the early, the 1940s,
Yep.
1950s, is the Negro League, right? Then eventually it ended up integrating into just the NBA. Now you got
Mm-hmm.
Negroes and white people playing in basketball with each other. So it's possible that that can happen later down the line. But if everybody wants to replicate the oppression of civil rights, the civil rights movement, let's do that same thing when it comes down to sports.
Mm-hmm.
And like it was a point in time where white people didn't want to play sports with black people. Okay, cool. Black people got their own league.
Mm.
Transgenders, well, regular people, they don't want to play sports with transgenders. It's too okay, cool. Give transgenders their own league. Then maybe after so much growth and development over time, that league can merge into the WNBA and then to the NBA. know, let's get back to the basics on a lot of this stuff. We're making
It's way
shit
too
too.
complex. It's
It's
yeah.
way more too complex than because the argument is always an overgeneralization. It's too
Mm-hmm.
many people. It's 8 billion people on Earth. You can't cookie cut every situation and think that, oh well, people are like, no, it's you got it's everything is situational. Whether you want to talk about Michael Phelps or you want to talk about what's it, Lena Williams, Lena, the transgender swimmer.
Mm.
I can't think of her name.
Man, I'm not too sure. I don't watch a lot of swimming either, but I do know who you're talking about because I seen it on Twitter one time. But
Yeah,
yeah.
and so and you're gonna have anomalies to where black and white now has a shade of gray.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't really generalize everybody and try to stuff everybody in this bubble. And we haven't talked to, like, it's 8 billion people on Earth. There's no way in hell I could just sit here and generalize and say that all people like this,
Mm-hmm.
these people like this. But that's what a lot of people do. Oh, well, women today want this. Men today expect this.
Yeah.
You don't really know that. Have you talked to 8 billion people to gather a general
Yeah.
consensus? No.
Yeah, for
You know,
sure.
so the best thing you could do is just get creative and say,
Hmm.
okay, well, we got this new classification of people called transgender. Then we need transgender sports,
Hmm.
right? Cause and then you got non-binary people. They don't want to identify as male or female. So what if they want to get into that? What do you do with these people? Do
Hmm.
you need non-binary sports too? Or do you just need alternative sports for people who are transgender, people who are non-binary, so they can compete? You
Yeah,
know,
for sure. No, I
it's
see
just
that
it's
it's
the
very,
same.
it's so complex and it's so many things. And what it would come down to is how popular it is. What are the ratings, and is there even money to be made? Because if the NBA wasn't making any money, chances are they probably wouldn't be doing what they're doing. They probably wouldn't have 32 arenas around the U.S. that produce either billions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. And it's just it's profit. It's what happens. So with the
Mhm.
WNBA, some of them have their own stadiums, and some of them reuse other people's stadiums, whether it's a college stadium or soccer stadiums or just things like that, because they can't afford it because there's not enough revenue in it. Um, I mean that there goes so many things, and I feel like we just gave Twitter 36 minutes for them to cancel us on. So I mean, we could do it like that, but nah. Honestly, I do see what you're
We're not
saying,
gonna
and
get canceled.
nah, man, I hope not, man. I
Yeah.
just got started, but
Nah, yeah, we won't get canceled, bro. It's no hate, it's no bigotry, you know.
mhm.
It's like I say, it's just about being creative with your ideas. You know,
Yeah,
today's society is set up, everything is set up to where it has to be a debate or an argument. There's
hmm,
no there's no room for creativity. You watch these shows where people get on and debate, they just want to sit here and throw spit and piss at each other and talk about, well, you're this and you're that and the right and the left. Hell nah. If you come up with a basketball league specifically for transgenders and non-binary people, don't no transgender, no non-binary people want to compete in it, and okay,
it
cool.
is. Yeah, it is what it
Lost
is
that
at that
idea.
point.
It is what it is.
Hmm.
But if people do see that, hey, this is our opportunity to shed light on our communities and do things the way we want to do it, and operate in our own nexus in our own domain with people who are like us,
Hmm.
see the world like we do, it's a safe space.
Yeah.
You can still broadcast it to the world because you got millions of people out there who claim that they support
Hmm.
trans community.
Yeah.
People will get out and march and get online on Instagram and Facebook and talk all that sass. Like, oh, well, we support transgenders. People should be able to do what they want. Okay, cool. So if there was a transgender league, y'all telling me y'all would buy tickets and show up and go to the games and support the transgender athletes? Because if it's
That's what they're
no,
saying.
yeah. Because if it's
Hmm.
no, then the trans community knows that, okay, we really don't have the support that people were saying that they.
Hmm. Yeah, no, for sure, and that's what it comes down to. And well, I mean, even that, because I know we've been going on for about 2 hours and 4 minutes, and it flew by. Um,
Yeah.
it did, but I mean to wrap this up, because I for sure definitely want you back on the show. I always, well, not always. I've only done it for 2 episodes, but I want to ask you this before we end this one. Um, Beyond who you are today, who do you want to be tomorrow and moving forward? And what are some things that you're looking forward to?
I think that the person that I want to be tomorrow in the future is a person of purpose, a
Mm-hmm.
person of resilience, a guy who can come in and hopefully inspire, teach,
Mm-hmm.
help people, see that there's more to life than just left and right, you know. Um, inspire balance. Would love to um, would love to invoke a sense of balance and a true possibility of is always an alternative. There's always, something that could be done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, always open to debate and open to conversation. I think we need to get back to the basics of philosophy. We need to get back to the basis of thinking openly. One of the greatest quotes I ever heard is it's not about thinking outside the box, it's about thinking as to where the box doesn't exist.
Mm.
So want to be a person that can echo that message, whether I have a platform online or whether I don't, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I really wanted to do this with you today because we've been talking about it for a long time. And,
A couple months,
after
yeah.
watching a couple months, so
Yeah.
after seeing so much stuff online and hearing some of the heinous opinions of, people out in the world, I'm just thinking like, damn, I really want to put my thoughts out there and see what people think about them and see if, I can make people say,
Mm-hmm.
that's interesting, you know?
For sure. Yeah. Well, man, honestly, I definitely could say just from my point of view, I don't know how many people are gonna watch this or even comment their thoughts or whether even beyond just looking at the screen what they're gonna take away from it. But for me personally, I just say I appreciate you coming on, and I've learned a few things that even I didn't think about or even think about in that perspective. Honestly, in all my time of wrapping my head around the whole like LeBron going woman and like becoming the all star of the WNBA, I never thought about a transgender league or anything like that. And I know so many people have heinous thoughts, and they're just very, I wouldn't even say the word subjective. They're just very blindfolded to the fact that people are here, people are their own people. I think of like whether it's a friend or an acquaintance that I know that is just like when they even hear the word gay, they're shut off. And so
Hmm.
I'm able to sit here, I can respect people's opinions. I don't like when people force their thoughts and opinions or even religious beliefs onto me. I'll listen to you, but I don't like whenever they're like, you should also be like this. Not a big fan of that.
Hmm.
But I do respect it. I hear what people are saying. And at the end of the day, I mean, I'm open minded to it. I hear people out, and I love to hear different people's points of view. And that's the whole reason I do this like podcast little thing for fun, is because I get to learn from people. From my friend Alex, I
Yeah.
learned a lot about different conspiracies. With my friend Gabe, we always just talk it up, have a good time. And now with you, I've learned so much about whether it's just the history lesson, but also the way you think. And it also makes me kind of like a light bulb go off. And now I'm like, okay, I mean, maybe you can look at it in this shine of light, and, different ways of just thinking in general. So I do appreciate it. I
Hmm.
appreciate you having on or coming onto this show. And before we wrap this one up, is there anything you want to say to the people?
Oh no, man, but just everybody be steadfast, everybody be open-minded, everybody take care of yourselves, and shit, Godspeed.
For sure, man. Well, appreciating for everybody tuning in. This has been episode 8. So I'm gonna say it's been episode 8. Could be 7. We're not too far along, but we'll get there. Appreciate y'all tuning
Yeah.
in. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see y'all in the next one.